Hello. Welcome to another reading wrap up. How are you? Doing my wrap up a little bit early just to get it to you on time, but this last week has been a difficult one as a reader. It wasn't also, I didn't cut my hair. I wasn't necessarily in a slump, but I was just picking up books, putting them down, picking up books, putting them down. So near the end, it's going to be a little discombobulated, but I read some really good ones. So, and some just books that I'm thinking about this month. So we're going to dive into them. But before we do that, shout out to the sponsor of this video, which is, you know them, you love them. And I'm actually so excited for what is inside this box. Yeah, you know, it's book of the month time. Book of the month. Book subscription service for us readers. They have a team of readers who comb through all the new releases in all different genres. Romance, young adult, thrillers, lit fic, they got it all. And this month, if you use the code BOUQUET, new subscribers will get their first book for $5 and, oh, it's just out of reach. Well, you can also get a book of the month hat. I got sent a really cute one that says book lover. I think they have a couple of options on their website. So definitely check it out. It's a really cool deal for May. Free hat and a $5, did I mention, hardcover new release? All that information will be down below. What did I pick? This was a difficult month because they had so many different books that I was really interested in. And they also have add-ons. So every month for one, I did not explain this well. I'm so sorry. It's a subscription service so that every month you get to choose one or more books. And they also have certain add-ons. They have a Catherine Center for this month. And then they had another one that was like a runner-up for what I was going to pick called, it was kind of like fantasy, but pirates. I'll put it over here. I was very interested in that. But what I ended up picking was, my first pick is The Names by Florence Knapp. This extraordinary novel asks, can a name change the course of a life? It just seems like messy families, and we'll talk about it, but I've been reading about a lot of messy families recently. Excited about that, and I loved the cover. So, what is in this box, though? I feel like I say this every month, but I'm so excited to read this book. I don't know if you've had this all over your timeline or what. This is Silver Elite by Danny Francis, and the reason I laughed is because the quote on the back says, "My name is Wren Darlington," and just something about Darlington, I'm sorry, it set me off. "I've been hiding who I am my entire life. Today will be no different." And you could get this for $5. The first book of a sizzling dystopian romance series. Psychic gifts are a death sentence, and there are rules to survival. Trust no one, lie to everyone, and whatever you do, don't fall for your greatest enemy. But yeah, dystopian romance. Are we back, baby? But anyway, yeah, I keep catching my eye and being like, what's with the bob? And you always get a cute bookmark as well. So thank you so much to Book of the Month. Bouquet, new subscribers, $5, hardcover new release. Okay, check out the list. It's a really good list this month. Thank you so much, as always, for sending me great books and supporting this channel. So, what a strange list. What a strange month. Can we just have a catch up a little bit? Hi. How are you doing? So, spring has come and gone. In the time that I talked to you last, the cherry blossoms came out. It poured. It didn't even pour. It hailed. Cherry blossoms are gone. Happy spring. Hope you spent it well. It was a really quick one this year. And yeah, I just had a lot of things going on. I had a lot of work. Also, just my concentration levels weren't really great. I think I was just trying to do too many things, and I had a bunch of friends coming to visit, and it was just a lot going on. So I didn't read quite as much, or I had some books that I kind of put down, not necessarily any fault of the book, but more on me. So this is going to be really interesting for me to try and gather my thoughts about a lot of these books because my brain was really not on, but I have a couple really good ones that I want to share with you. So let's dive in. So I left you off in my March reading wrap up saying that I ended March reading Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. This is Cassandra Clare's first adult fantasy. It is her first book outside of the Shadowhunter world. And you know what? I had a lot of problems with it when I read it for the first time, but I think on the second read, I actually liked it a lot more. It still had its issues, but I kind of write it off as to her being a little clunky at she hasn't had to build a world in 20 something years. So yeah, there were some things that I'm still a little bit like, ooh, not really sure about. But the reason I read it is because the sequel came out and a lot of people were talking about it, and I'm not gonna lie, I saw a piece of fan art that I was like, tell me more. Sometimes that's all it takes. So I read it, and let me tell you what Swordcatcher is about first. So Swordcatcher is about, it's hard to say. We're following a couple different POVs. So mainly we are following a boy named Kel. He is the bodyguard and body double of the prince of kind of this main kingdom that this is all taking place in. We follow him as things kind of fall to all hell for various different reasons. Like this, really, the plot is sort of all over the place. I think with Shadowhunters, you know what? She actually even does it with Shadowhunters. It's not like we have this one objective we are heading towards. Like a lot of Swordcatcher was really just us getting to know the characters and them having to deal with like, they had to put out all these little fires. I think Ragpicker King is when we realize that there is like a large fire that we're gonna have to put out, you know? So I don't want to go too far into it. We're also following another character who is a physician, and she is part of a group of people. I've mentioned this before, but she pulls from a lot of real life cultures for this book, for better or for worse. I think in the for better case, we have our physician named Lynn, whose culture is based off of the history of the Jewish people, which I think Cassandra Clare does very well. Cassandra Clare is Jewish. I find that she's able to make that very rich because of what she's pulling from, but there are other cultures that she pulls from that I'm just like, Cassie, maybe just like you could have left that out. Like she pulls from Korean culture and she doesn't like change any names. It was clunky, but you know what? Upon the second read, like I said, Swordcatcher was better. Ragpicker King, my memories of it are shaky, but what I will say is that it felt so much like I got to the end of the book. These are both like 600 pages, okay? When I got to the end of the Ragpicker King, the only comparison I could make was the second book in the Last Hour series. If you have read, you know, Chain of Iron, Chain of Gold, that second book in the trilogy, that frustration and that just like you want to punch these people in the face and be like, talk to each other, that's how it felt. So yes, I'm so mad actually that we don't get, now that I'm thinking about it, like in that context, if you've read Ragpicker King, if we get the prince's POV, I genuinely feel like he would be a Jace kind of character. I'm actually very sure that he is just like an adult Jace, but because we don't get his POV, we actually don't know. I don't know. I don't want to sell it too much. Like imagine if she wrote the Mortal Instruments, but you never, like Jace never spoke. That makes no sense. Yeah, he definitely was built from like similar bones. So you know what? It was fine. I really liked being in that world. Like I was very immersed. Again, those are both 600 pages. It took me at least a week, if not more. And I was just reading, you know, those characters. So by the time I finished the book, I really felt like I was I had been on a journey, and I kind of felt sad leaving them. I also think it ended well. Like I'm excited for where it's gonna go. Do I really understand the plot? It's fully political intrigue. I think I know what's going on. But it does get quite confusing in the end just because there are so many players. But I have faith in it. But we'll have to see. But yeah, that was the Ragpicker King. Let me know your thoughts. I know a lot of you guys have read it. What do my notes say? Yeah, I pretty much just wrote that it was just annoying and miscommunication and drama. That's the Ragpicker King. Enjoy. After that, I read I Am Made of Death. This is by the same author as The Whispering Dark and Your Blood, My Bones. I have liked all of her work so far. It's very like modern day, but fantasy. So a lot of just like kids going to college and then oops, there's some kind of weird death cult and they have magical powers and they can speak to the dead, whatever. So I always love the settings, but what I want her to do is to write without relying on characters from the previous books, because I read The Whispering Dark first, thank God. I enjoyed it. I actually really liked it. Then I read Your Blood, My Bones, and halfway through, or more like 75% of the way through, all of the characters from The Whispering Dark show up and are like integral to the plot, which I don't think I would have picked up on a lot of the jokes and kind of Easter eggy kind of things if I hadn't read The Whispering Dark. I'm Made of Death, they're there pretty much from page 1. Again, I wouldn't have gotten the jokes and I wouldn't really have gotten these characters. She doesn't do any kind of character work with them because they've already been established from The Whispering Dark. So that was just weird. So before I even tell you about it really, I would say I think you could read it without reading The Whispering Dark, but just know that you're going to be missing a bit, and I feel like it would be kind of a meh. It would come off as even more meh, you know? But what is I Am Made of Death about? It is about a boy who is hired as, what do we even call him? An assistant? A bodyguard? It's such a weird position he's in, but basically over summer he is helping this one just like super rich girl, just like watching over her, making sure she stays out of trouble and making sure that she goes to her dance classes. That's like her only thing. She's had a rough time and she needs to be looked after. We find out that she's got some weird stuff going on. I don't really know how much more to say, but if you like in like Black Swan, for example, she's a ballerina. That's the kind of dance that she does. If you like in Black Swan where she looks in the mirror and her reflection has a mind of its own, you would like this. I feel like I got I really liked the premise, but the actual way that it played out, it was so fast. It was low-key insta-love, and I didn't really get why. It's sort of, apparently in my notes, I wrote that the romance was sort of like you knew they were supposed to be together because they are the two main characters of the book. And so you know it's inevitable, but you don't really get why they're together. That's how it felt. So yeah, I just think it moved really quickly for the kind of heavy themes that they were playing with. And the most interesting, fun characters were the characters from The Whispering Dark, in my opinion. So kind of a miss. I still liked it. I would still recommend you read it. But it was something I was really highly anticipating because I like Kelly Andrews, but I'm just kind of getting sick of these worlds connecting, but connecting so loosely at the same time. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, it was fine. Just a little bit of a letdown for me. After that, I have to put a big disclaimer on this. I'm extremely biased because Susan is a friend. I read the Romance Rivalry, the arc. It is coming out in May. This is my friend Susan Lee's third young adult romance. This one is really personal to her because it is about romance lovers. Before she became an author, she was heavily involved in the romance book community anyway. She was a reviewer. She just lives and breathes romance books. And this is about two book influencers that kind of get compared to each other, and there's kind of this ugly rivalry going on, and they end up going to the same college. Something about that rivalry coming offline ramps it way the heck up, and they end up in some kind of competition to find real love because both of them, Aiden and Irene, they are both romance book lovers, but neither of them have really had a lot of in real life romance, off the page romance. So every chapter kind of revolves around a different trope. All I can say is that I would love Susan to write a screenplay because her characters, I can always see their facial expressions. Like, I'm a really visual reader. Susan's also a big K-drama lover, so the drama's a little like up there. And so the way, like especially Irene, the way that she reacts to things, I can see her face. I would just love to see Susan's work be made into some kind of visual medium, whether it is a TV show or a film. I just think that she writes in a way that is kind of meant for the screen, which is a compliment. I really, as I said, I'm a visual reader, so the way that I'm able to see every scene is fun. So yeah, I think especially if you are a romance reader, if you've ever been like shamed for reading romance or something, if people think that they're just silly girl books or whatever, this was written for you, and it was written with a lot of love. So yeah, that is the Romance Rivalry by Susan Lee, coming out in May. It was fun. I was giggling. I was in a park, and I remember I actually sent Susan a couple text messages because I was actually laughing out loud. I certainly had fun. That is the Romance Rivalry. Ooh, after that, I read Theft. This is not my usual style because I don't really like multi-generational stories, but this was really only like 2.5 generations. But so this takes place in Tanzania, and I believe it starts kind of in the 70s, mostly in the 80s, and then we kind of get into present day. And we're following kind of one particular family throughout this time. How do I even describe it? I think I liked it mostly because it was a setting I've never read before. The characters are moving quite a bit between cities in Tanzania, and so I just loved that I had to like look up on a map and see like where all these cities are. It was a book that you could really like just hear and smell and see everything that they were talking about. All the characters are quite complicated, I would say, except for one. I would name him as the hero of our story if there is one. All the other characters are very, you're rooting for them, but then at one point you're just like, why'd you do that? So yeah, it gets pretty heavy, it gets pretty dark, and you are trying to understand the motives of a lot of these characters. But I really actually enjoyed the ending. I thought the ending was very sweet. So yeah, I don't think this would hit for everyone, but if you're someone that's looking for a story that takes place in Tanzania, and again, I learned a lot just in terms of like what was going on there politically in the 80s and things like that, I would give it a go. Like if that piqued your interest. I know that I didn't summarize it well at all. And yeah, that is theft. I'm so sorry. That one was one that took me a really long time to get through. It's a little bit hazy in my mind because it stretched for so long. Okay, but then these I remember because I filmed my entire reaction. If you want to see my live reaction to the next 3 books, I have them somewhere here. I read Gifted and Talented by Olivie Blake. I had so much fun. Actually, my brain needed to kind of recalibrate for the first 10% of the book because she did the writing style that she did with Masters of Death, which is every page is like one sentence. I give you a couple examples in the video, but there are pages where it is just one long sentence. Parentheses, M dashes. Oh my gosh. She literally in the first paragraph, she ends it with writing, "Just kidding, haha, Olivie." So yeah, it's super weird, it's super funny. It's unlike anything she's ever written before, I would say. Maybe closer to the Atlas 6. Like maybe if the people from the Atlas 6 had, you know, just graduated college normally and gotten relatively normal lives, you know, it could have been them, you know. But this is about 3 siblings. Their father is an incredibly wealthy, influential man. He came up with some kind of technology. All 3 of them are incredibly high achievers. One of them is a congressman. One of them owns her own tech company. She apparently cured mental illness, which I thought was so funny. And then one of them is like an incredible ballerina until she had a horrible accident. But when their father dies and they need to read the will, who is the company being left in the hands of, things get a little wonky. And we basically just follow them for like the weekend leading up to his funeral and reading the will and just wild stuff. They also, this ends up like not being a huge deal, but they all have some kind of like telepathic or electrokinetic powers. Like some of them can accidentally summon the apocalypse and stuff like that. So it's just bonkers. And at first I thought I wouldn't like it because I said this in my other video, but I tend to not love stories about just like really wealthy kids and the whole story revolves around their trust fund and like their inheritance, like boo-hoo. But this one was really funny and the characters were so unlikable until you realize that you loved them. And I think that that's really like she did something really amazing there, because I think that's what family is you can recognize that a person is just like so unlikable, but you love them anyway, you know? So I felt like these characters became my family in that strange way. So just really fun. I don't think it's for everyone. Like if you liked One for My Enemy, I don't think it's guaranteed that you would like The Gifted and Talented. If you liked Alone with You in the Ether, I don't think you're guaranteed. Like this really felt like Olivie Blake, but just a new version. So yeah, I'm surprised that I liked it as much as I did, but I'm glad that it was just funny. Olivie Blake is really funny. I had a jolly good time actually with Gifted and Talented. After that, I got an arc of a book that should be coming out. I believe it's coming out in June, called The Starving Saints. This is by Caitlin Starling. I haven't read any other. I think I tried to read one of them and I put it down for some reason, but I haven't read any other work by her. So this is my first. And this one was also bonkers. Very much a kind of book where you don't know if half of it is a hallucination or all of it is a hallucination, to be honest. So if you're not okay with kind of dreamy sequences or like drugged out sequences, this would not be the book for you. Starving Saints, we start off in a castle that is under siege. They've been under siege for like 6 months. So they have run out of food. They almost ran out of water, but luckily one of our characters, we have 3 POVs, one of our characters is kind of like a mad scientist. She might be a scientist or she might just be a miracle worker. We aren't sure, because she just accidentally stumbled upon a way to clean this like tank of water that they had that was poison to drink. And now they have water. So she solved the water issue. Now she's tasked with solving the food issue. And she's like, I can't science the shit out of this. Like, I need a miracle. So she's a very weird, like, ex-nun, just living in her lab, being weird kind of girl. Okay. Next up, we have a soldier who has, for reasons unknown, been kind of demoted. Like, the king refuses to let her go out and fight, and she has been tasked with being the bodyguard of this mad scientist nun, which, if that doesn't sell you already, mad scientist nun, what are you doing on this channel, you know? So yeah, she's her bodyguard, doesn't want to be there, doesn't want to spend any time in the same room with this weird nun, all right? And then we have another girl who works in the castle and who may have a history with this bodyguard and may be plotting to kill her. That already sounds interesting to me, but the real story starts when all of a sudden the saints that they worship, that this castle worship, yeah, they show up in person. In Saint. The saints just like waltz in and they've got food and they've got water and they've got wine and they've got dancers and they've got party all the time. Is it a hallucination? What is going on? Even the strongest believers in the faith are like, what is going on? What happens when the things that you pray for happen, but you're like, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. So then we embark on what can only be called a massive acid trip. Like, I don't know. Was the water actually poisoned and they're all just dreaming the rest of the book? Couldn't tell ya. But I had a really good time reading it. So if you're okay with being just confused and having a lot of weird, like, religious imagery, plus probably cannibalism, plus just like medieval mass hysteria. This was a book where I couldn't picture things, and I think that was on purpose because reality starts to warp. Time, space, etc. starts to really warp in this castle by the end of the book. So even our characters are like, why is this wall here? Why can I walk through this wall? Or something like that. So it's a trip. So if that sounds up your alley, I do recommend it. Yeah, there is cannibalism, so just like trigger warning. I guess. The Starving Saints. After that, I took a break from my weird girl books because I got a copy of Junie from the library. This had a really long wait. I went into this unsure because I talk about it a little bit in my other video, but it's a Good Morning America book club pick. And I kind of feel like, I don't know, I'm a little hesitant about the big book club picks. I'm sort of like, oh, this will be, you know, just like palatable for a large swath of people. Like, imagine having to pick a book hopefully all of America would read and enjoy and agree on, right? Like, what would that be? So I was just sort of like, you know, so I just went into it kind of being like, we'll give this a try. So pleasantly surprised. So Junie follows a girl who is enslaved on a plantation in Alabama. She works in the home. She is best friends with the girl who is her age. She's her maid. We start to kind of unravel more and more about her family. Junie is really haunted by the death of her sister to the point where eventually it genuinely haunts her, where her sister is a ghost that she can talk to. And we kind of just follow Junie as her life starts to fall apart when the owner of the plantation brings home a young man, a suitor, for her best friend, the daughter of the plantation owner. And Junie starts to become even more aware of the fact that her life could be changed in an instant just because of the whims of these plantation owners. I think that when we see, especially in like mainstream media, stories of enslaved people being told, we see a lot of the brutality, like the physical violence, but this was really, trigger warnings, it does get physical, but it's really just about how these families, like how do these families exist when someone can make a decision in a split second and send your daughter away and you never see her again because he didn't like the dress that she wore that day or something. Like it really was in these tiny details of just how can a community survive? How could these families survive? But not only is Junie's life being affected by this possible marriage on the horizon, there's also the Civil War is on the horizon. And also, remember how I said that her sister comes to her as a ghost? She has a mystery to unravel. Her sister has given her 3 tasks that need to be done so that her soul can pass over. And at first, Junie kind of doesn't want anything to do with this, but as she does, she unravels layers and layers and layers of secrets. And yeah, I personally really enjoyed the reading experience. I'd love to hear what other people have to say. Even just the way that like an Alabama summer was described. We follow her through almost an entire year, if not more. Just how the nature is described. Junie's very close to the trees. Girl after my own heart. She loves to sit in a tree. There was a lot of beauty in it. There was a lot of love in it, but obviously lots of hardship. I thought the ending, I couldn't believe what I read, but it really couldn't have ended any other way. Yeah, I thought that I'm glad that she did what she did with the ending, even though I'm not, you know, like Let me know what you think though. That was Junie. I personally recommend. Oh, and in my notes I wrote, I thought it was predictable, but it wasn't the big things that mattered. It was the little details. So there are a few things in there, like a few reveals, a few like moments that I thought were really predictable. Like I saw them a mile away, but once I finished reading it, I realized it wasn't, those moments weren't actually the important things. Like normally in a story when you get like, oh my, can you believe this is the truth? Normally that's really the important part, right? It's not. In this book, it's really the devils are in the details. Yeah, so I appreciated that about it. So that was the only note that I left. But yeah, Junie. Oh my God, past me is not helping. I didn't leave any notes. No, I've got it. I remember this book. So the next book I read was the Otherware Post. If you've read A Darker Shade of Magic, for example, you know that there are 3 Londons, right? Like they're identical cities, but they have different levels of magic, right? And like only a few people can move between the doors in between cities, right? So that's what this is. We have a world where there are 3 different identical cities, but they, depending on which dimension you're in, are totally different. And there was some horrible accident that got rid of the doors. Everyone in one city are just like knocked off the face of the earth. And because of that, only a very few amount of people are able to go in between the one other world that exists. There's 2 worlds. Only these like Otherware Post couriers are allowed to travel between the realms in order to deliver mail. Okay? So our main girl is undercover because her dad is a notorious murderer. We slowly get the details, but that's what you need to know at the beginning, okay? He is known by name, and if anybody knew her name, she would be shunned by the community. She's just happy to go about her life, trying to be as under the radar as possible, when she gets a letter. Apparently when that whole accident happened 7 years ago, letters went missing or something, and the Otherware Post just recently found a bag of letters from 7 years ago, and they worked on, you know, finally getting them in the right places. So she receives a letter that was written 7 years ago, and it says that her father might be innocent. And she was supposed to meet someone at this cafe 7 years ago. Once she kind of follows the clues to who she should be talking to, she realizes that she has to enroll in the Otherware Post Academy to kind of become a postmaster, learning how to manipulate the magic and stuff like that. So how does she remain undercover but also go to the academy and try to uncover the truth of her father's murderous past, you know? Interesting premise. Unfortunately, I thought the world building was really clunky, and I just did not like our main character. Her personality would change kind of depending on what situation she was in, which I felt was really just convenient for the writer. I loved the love interest named Tristan. He was a joy. He was fun. And I really liked her roommate eventually. She had to grow on me, but I liked her roommate. So I really only ended up finishing it because of those 2 characters. I think if I had maybe been in a different mindset, this was again when my concentration frustration levels were starting to get really bad. I could have liked it more, but I think it was just not quite there for me, unfortunately. It just had a lot going on. It also just felt really predictable, a little comical. At the end, like once big reveals start happening, it was a little comical how predictable it was. But yeah, I would still give it a go if that sounds like it could be interesting to you. It was just missing some special sauce for me, unfortunately. That was the Otherware Post. Ooh, actually, I'm saying this out of order. I skipped over Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Oh, I got the ARC. Love V.E. Schwab. Love V.E. Schwab. Don't like Addie LaRue. If you're an Addie LaRue fan, you will like Bury Our Blood in the Midnight Soil. So, we are dealing with lesbians, vampires, 3 different timelines. What else do you need to know? Basically, we follow 3 different girls. Eventually, their stories will intertwine. How much can I tell you? I loved Alice. Alice is our contemporary girl. Her story takes place in about 2019. She is Scottish, but she is going to university in Boston, just started college. She is cool, but she's so anxious and she just wants to be liked, and she wants to use this as an opportunity to finally be this kind of outgoing, fun person that she knows that she is. You know. So we follow her as she goes to a party where she meets this cool girl with violet hair, and they just immediately are like drawn to each other. Gravity just pulls them across the dance floor to each other. They go back to their dorm together. When Alice wakes up, the girl is gone, except for a little note that just says, you know, see you never, basically, just like goodbye. But Alice starts to notice some weird stuff. After that little hookup, the sun starts to burn her skin and she can't eat anymore. Not human food, at least. And then, of course, we meet our other 2 girls, Charlotte and Maria. Maria is our oldest character, so she has more than one name. More than one identity, let's just say. My issue with the book is that I love Alice. Really wanted to hear more from her. I wanted to hear hundreds of pages less of Maria and Charlotte. Oh my God. The way that this is laid out, the first 50% of the book, we do not hear from Charlotte. And so I'm waiting, I'm thinking like, oh my God, okay, Charlotte's gonna be great. I'm so excited to hear Charlotte's story. Within the 50% of the book, I would say more than half of that absolutely is for Maria, because she's kind of the foundation. Her impact is carried to present day. That's cool, that's fine. Give us a strong character, but she is so boring. The kind of musings on, you know, classic themes of vampirism, like immortality and lust and love and, you know, I think that V.E. Schwab really likes to muse about immortality, and I just don't like it. It wasn't anything new. There wasn't any kind of new take on being a vampire, you know? So it just kind of felt tired. When we get to Charlotte's POV, by that point, I'm so sick of reading about the past. Like, I don't want to spoil anything. I just wish it was structured in some other way. Like, it really, unfortunately for me, was just too long. And Maria and Charlotte were not new. I'm not trying to ask V.E. Schwab to create a human being like we've never seen before, but Alice felt quite fresh. I don't know how to describe it. And Charlotte was like, I've read this character before. And Maria was like, I've read this character before, you know? Hi, I forgot to mention this, so sorry if the lighting is different. It's a few minutes later. The ending, I'm so mad about it. I'm so mad about it. It happened so fast. We spent so long. We stretched Maria and Charlotte's stories out so long. And then we get to the most interesting part, the climax of the story. It went so fast and I wasn't satisfied with it. I said this in a comment, but I'm more interested in what happens after the book ends than I was with anything that happened in the book. And that's my truth. So anyway, back to the review. Let me know your thoughts. Though I do really think if you liked Addie LaRue and also if you liked A Dowry of Blood, you would really like this. I think it felt very similar to Dowry of Blood for me, where I thought the beginning, like the setup was so interesting, and then once the rest of the story kind of continues, I got quite bored. It just felt a little long and a little not fresh. I think you would like it. So this was just a case of like, I guess I really don't like immortality stories. Yeah. So not without hope. I think I just wasn't the audience. I will love her fantasy books until I die. If she's dealing with the immortality stuff, I'm a little bit like, not for me, unfortunately, because that was very excited for that one. But bury our blood in the midnight soil. We're almost done. We're almost done. Next up, I read The Resurrectionist. Okay, if you read Anatomy of a Love Story and you were like, ooh, this was good, but it felt a little young and it felt a little predictable and it felt a little what the happened at the end. What was that ending? I would like to introduce you to The Resurrectionist. I think that this did what Anatomy, a Love Story wanted to do, but adult, queer, and without the weird ending. How do I describe this? We are following a boy whose father passes away, so he has to get his act together, figure out what his life path is going to be, and he is so drawn to the sciences. He wants to be a physician, he wants to be a surgeon. At the time, Edinburgh was the center of the surgical world. So he packs up his stuff, gets on a train, gets to Edinburgh, and quickly realizes that everything that's happening in the university is already kind of outdated. If you want to actually be at the cutting edge of what's going on in the surgical world, in the physician's world, you need to be going to these kind of underground private institutions. If you're in like a surgery lecture at the university, there's hundreds of students there. You can barely even see what's going on, right? They didn't have TV screens in the 1800s. So if you actually want to learn and you want to see like the newest techniques, you have to go to these small private places, which is expensive. And he simply does not have the funds. So when he finds a rather lucrative business that is very illegal, that may or may not involve robbing graves in order to gather cadavers for these private institutions to do their surgeries on, he gets rather wrapped up. There also may be some serial killers involved that he accidentally crosses paths with. I did have an issue with the pacing. I felt like it slowed down right when I thought it was going to speed up, which was a weird experience, but I liked it. I liked all the characters. I loved the setting. I feel like it'd be a really good autumnal read if you want to add it to your autumn TBR. But yeah, it almost felt deja vu-y. How similar the beginning was to Anatomy, a Love Story. Yeah, if you almost loved Anatomy, a Love Story, give The Resurrectionist a shot. Thank you. After that, I read a book that I tried to explain to my friends over the weekend and I really fumbled. So let me try again. I read Death of an Author, The Death of an Author. So this is told in 3 different ways. In one, we are following our main character, who is an author. She was a professor. She recently lost her job. She also, due to an accident, is paralyzed. We meet her when she's at a family wedding. I think she's in Liberia. She's just over it. Like, her family thinks that she is just like broken and discarded and like never going to be good for anything because she is disabled. This kind of culmination of things has her sit down, lock in, and write the best novel of her life. Her other work was just never getting picked up. She writes this science fiction novel in this crazy fever dream and it takes over the world. She is a 10 times over millionaire, changes her life. And that is the second way that the book is told. We are also interspersed between her chapters. We also get snippets from her actual book. And this book is about robots who live on Earth after humans have been wiped off the face of the earth. To me, it felt like if Psalm for the Wild Built was darker and grungier, okay? I don't know how else to describe it. And then the third way that we are told the story is through interviews. Someone is interviewing her family members talking about the author. I really liked this, but I think you also need to be in the right mindset for it because our main character is going through a horrible time. Even when she finally kind of gets what she wants, right? She is this beloved, world-renowned writer. It makes her life even harder. Her family still doesn't really care about her. Like, it's just quite... I think it would be even better on a reread maybe a few years from now. But yeah, I do highly recommend it, especially if you like lit fic that intersects with sci-fi. This will be right up your alley. That is The Death of an Author. I wish past me took notes. I have nothing to say. I know I had more things to say, but yeah, as someone who didn't like Psalm for the Wild Built because I think it felt a little too hokey and happy and like peace and love, this was definitely more my style. It was sad. It was rough. I really loved the robot storyline. I think it just came out. So let me know your thoughts. I know a couple of you have read it, so. There you go. Oh, and then, so I kind of thought, I don't really count Gifted and Talented as a fantasy. So I kind of thought that I've just been striking out with fantasy books recently until I picked up The Raven Scholar. Thank you for coming in and saving the day. The Raven Scholar is high fantasy, so do not read this for romance, even though there is kind of like a rough time. There's a rough relationship in there. But yeah, this is not a romantasy, okay? First of all, this is the start of an unfinished series. Why did I do this to myself? I don't know. But yeah, just as a warning, this is a long book. It's complicated, lots of characters, lots of lore, and the second book's release date has not even been shared with the rest of us. So Godspeed. If you want to join me in reading it, I think it's worth it. I really liked it. So The Raven Scholar is difficult to explain. We are following a bunch of different characters as the emperor prepares to pass on his crown. So in this world, there are 8 different gods, I suppose, and they are ruled by one emperor, but the emperor can only serve for a maximum of 24 years. And so our current emperor has reached his 24th year. So now we have to have the trials, which has a representative from each of the 8 groups. And they basically fight to the death in some cases. Hopefully they don't need to die, but one will come out on top and become emperor. It has a narrator. It kind of doesn't feel that way in the beginning, but eventually it becomes more and more unhinged. Our narrator is, I don't want to spoil it, but our narrator is interesting, breaks the fourth wall often. Yeah, it just gets more and more unhinged as the book goes along. I don't want to give you too many details, to be honest, but I really enjoyed the lore. Each group has a very different specialty. So for example, if you pledge yourself to the Ravens, they are the lawyers, the accountants, the scholars, etc. If you pledge to the monkey, you are the playwrights, the entertainers, the singers, etc. At first I was sort of like, what? We're dealing with monkeys and oxen? Like, what's going on? It works. It works. I really enjoyed it. The magic, the political intrigue, perfect. Perfect. Exactly what I needed. Some of the trials, I got a little tired. Like once we got to the last-ish trial, I was sort of like, I just want this to move faster because I want to know what's going on. Like it's just a mess. I can't believe it took place over the course of 6 days or something. Like the book takes place over a week and I'm like, how are any of you guys like still standing? I would just, my anxiety alone would have taken me out. I really liked it. That kind of saved fantasy in my eyes for April. If you're into high fantasy, political intrigue, really enjoyed. But yeah, it's gonna be continued years from now. So good luck to us all. Good luck to us all. And now we reach to the end of the month. This is the last book that I finished this month. This is thanks to Greek Choir on TikTok. I'm not sure what I think her Instagram handle is also Greek Choir, but amazing fantasy recommendation. Amazing recommendations in general, but I get a lot of really great fantasy recommendations. And this one came directly from Greek Choir, which is someone you can build a nest in. And the way that she described this book is that anytime that this author could have gone in a more normal direction, he continuously chose to go the weird direction. And I have to change my battery. So yeah, this is absolutely for lovers of weird books. This is about a monster who gets woken up from her hibernation a little bit early by a bunch of monster hunters, which is just the first domino to fall, leading her eventually to meet this woman. What is this in her chest? Is she in love? And then we go on this whole journey with her and her new girlfriend. And this really, if you like T. Kingfisher and you're okay with body horror, you will love this book. This felt very just like cozy fantasy T. Kingfisher-esque, but the monster basically is like liquid until she eats things, and then she can grow a body using the bones of the things that she's eaten. So a lot of the book is like, this bag is really heavy, so I moved a bunch of different shoulder blades I've eaten, over here to help me support the weight or something. Like, it's just weird the whole time. And I don't want to like spoil anything, so if I'm being vague, I'm sorry, but things are revealed that make her life rather complicated. It was a jolly good time. Like, I read it over the course of a couple days and I was just smiling the whole time. Honestly, if you're sick of the cozy fantasy, I feel like this is a cozy fantasy that is so weird and like a little bit gross, again, because of that body horror element to it. This might scratch the itch that you're looking for. If you still know that you love cozy fantasy, but you're kind of bored of it, cozy weird, funny, sweet, heartwarming. A lot of people are eaten. This is the book for you. That is someone you can build a nest in. And as far as the 3 books that I have kind of semi-read, I DNF'd this at 50%, and this is sort of on me, not on the book necessarily, and that is Shattered. Shattered is a memoir. It is by a celebrated author and playwright who had a devastating fall. He was just in his home and he fell in such a way that he became paralyzed. And so this whole memoir is actually dictated to his wife or his sons. So it's kind of written in these journal entries, like just day by day. Just like, what do you even think about when you are in a foreign country? He got injured while he was on vacation, kind of, in Rome. He is of British and Indian descent. He grew up in, I think, in London. So he's in a foreign country, can't speak Italian, and he's paralyzed. I think he can move his head, maybe? I think, yeah. Because he talks about like his wife sets up the iPad so that he can watch Netflix, and then it's been so long that he gets the "Are you still there?" button and he can't press it. He's paralyzed. He can't press it. So he like attempts to hit it with his nose, knocks the iPad out. Like, so what do you do when you're just kind of laying there all day? So he talks a lot about writing, why he started writing, why writing is so important, what it is to be a writer. He name drops a lot of his famous writer friends, which is cool. He's like BFFs with Salman Rushdie, so we get a lot of like interesting stories about him. But the reason I put it down is that, first of all, and this is the biggest point, I don't love memoirs. Like, it really takes a lot for me to get into a memoir and to finish a memoir. So that's why I say this was more on me. It just wasn't my style of book. I'm glad that I started it, but I knew that I wasn't going to finish it. So I put it down at about 50%. Another thing that caused me to kind of not rush to finish it was I really didn't like how he spoke about all of the women in his life. The way that, especially his current fiance, I guess. I don't know if it's his wife, but his partner, Isabella, who is there every single day, who wrote most of this book, right? The way that he talks about her or talks to her, because like you have to keep in mind that this whole thing was dictated, right? So she is hearing these words and writing them down. He says some things that I'm sort of like, I wouldn't want to hear that from my husband. I wouldn't say that to someone I loved, you know? But I think what he had to say about writing was really interesting. So if you're a memoir person, give it a go, but this just was kind of like 2 strikes for me and I didn't finish. But that was Shattered for you. And now I'm currently reading 2 books at the same time, which is not wise. I'm trying to finish one of them first. So the first one, the one that I'm trying to finish right now, is Hungerstone. I went into it not knowing anything. This takes place in the late 1800s, the 1880s and the 1890s. We follow our main woman, Lenore, I believe her name is, who's kind of just trying to survive, right? She has not been successful in having children, so she kind of feels like she is, in her mind, a kind of waste of a wife. She hasn't fulfilled one of her wifely duties, so she really throws herself into being like a homemaker for her husband. And so when they decide to buy property out in the moors, this kind of dilapidated old house called Hungerstone, she throws herself into getting it ready for their first hosting event where all their friends are going to come for a hunting party. But as they're making their way to Hungerstone, they discover someone who has gotten in a horrible carriage accident. And so they bring her to Hungerstone to help her recover. And wouldn't you know it, her name is Carmilla. And our main girl starts to have visions of her biting her neck. And the staff starts to get really odd. We catch one of the maids eating a live chicken. Carmilla is never seen in the daytime. Do you get what I'm saying? It's a vampire story. It's a vampire story. okay? Her husband is clearly hiding shit from her. His work seems shady as hell. And it's all about hunger and want. And how women, especially in this time period, were not allowed to hunger or to want. And so every time Carmilla tries to ask Lenore, you know, what do you like? What do you want to do? She's never able to say what she wants without the context of what her husband wants. So I'm struggling a little bit with it, to be honest, just because those conversations between Lenore and Carmilla aren't really groundbreaking to me, I would say. It's very just kind of like, girl, get up kind of feeling. But I'm excited for how it's going to unfold. I'm ready for Lenore to kind of stand on her own 2 feet and get shit done. And I think we're starting to see that. But yeah, I will have to let you know. I think I just got to 50%, but I'm hoping the pace speeds up a little bit because I'm not sure how I feel about Carmilla. And I'm also like kind of getting annoyed with Lenore. So yeah, I want. Maybe that's the whole point of this book. I don't know. So yeah, I'll get back to you on that. And then last night I started Where Shadows Meet, which is also a sapphic vampire story, but this one is way different. I believe this is a debut. Wow, so much is going on. I think I'm maybe 10% of the way through. We've got gods, we've got maybe angels, we've got vampires, we've got a god that turned into a vampire, we have humans, and then we have humans that can see the future and read minds. Those humans have been banished to live in the middle of the ocean because one of them gave the vampire queen a vision that she didn't like. We are bopping between 2 different timelines. One is happening in present day, one is happening 1200 years ago. I mean, there's so much going on. I think that first 10%, like exactly where I stopped last night, is the rocky, bumpy world building. I'm gonna be honest. The writing style was a little, I don't know how to describe it, but it wasn't clicking for me. It was one of those books that you feel like you're reading a book instead of falling into the story, you know? I hate having to describe that, but that's how it was. But now we have reached the kind of inciting incident and our story will continue, and I feel like now is when it's going to really seamlessly flow. I think that the last couple pages I read as the action was really picking up, I was in the flow. I was in the book. I saw it all happening. So I think it was perhaps just like a clunky beginning in terms of having to somehow get all of this information about the world to the reader. So I'll let you know about that as well. I'm hopeful, but yeah, I think that the writing style perhaps will take a little bit of getting used to. I think my critique with Hungerstone is that it's a little simple, like to the point where I feel like I've kind of read it before and I'm ready for it to get really interesting and faster and weirder. And for Where Shadows Meet, it feels like nothing I've ever read before, but also like, what's going on? This is a little much. So yeah, call me Goldilocks, but we'll see. I'm excited for both of those. I'm also so excited for all the books I have for next month. I still need to read Holy Terrors. I'm sorry, my library holds just all came in at once. And I don't want to rush that series. So I will be reading the Little Thieves series next month. That is a promise to you and to myself. So the sun has clearly set. I have finished telling you about my books. I'm going to make a cup of tea and get back to reading. So thank you so much for joining me. Sorry that I feel like this felt more discombobulated than usual, but maybe I say that every month. So, once again, you can use my code BOUQUET for book of the month. Get your first book for $5. Yes, indeed. And you can choose a cool free hat while supplies last. So thank you as always to Book of the Month for sponsoring this. And thank you for being here. May might be a little crazy because in June I will be in France. So thank you in advance for your patience with me. And see you next time. Okay? What are you reading? What are you loving? What are your thoughts on anything that I've read? Can't wait to chat. So I'll see you in the comment section. Okay? Bye!